Each of our scents is inspired by Daydreams, and I wanted them to be inspired by Daydreams because I felt like it gave us this room to play where we're not creating something that's photorealistic, right? Even if it's inspired by a certain setting, it doesn't have to exist the exact way that it did. It allows you that freedom to kind of play and experience and rewild your spirit.
Hi everyone, I'm Marianne Mychaskiw. Welcome back to another episode of Scent World. I'm here today with Keta Burke-Williams, founder of Ourside. Keta, welcome to Scent World.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I am such a fan of Ourside. I feel like there are 3 very different but immersive fragrances that I can't wait to get into with you. And I love the mission and the philosophy and, of course, the community that you've fostered through Ourside.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really awesome. We're a young brand, about a year and a half old now, but I think it's been incredible to see what a small and mighty community can do and the difference that we're actually making in people's lives through scent, which was our whole mission and our reason for being.
And you've already picked up accolades from like Cosmo, Harper's, no big deal. And I feel like the world is just so ready for a fragrance brand like this. And again, the community that you fostered really speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think that the whole reason we started Ourside, I mean, there's a whole personal story behind it too, which we can get into, but it's this idea of creating community and sparking moments of connection through scent. And so the accolades have been awesome. The press features have been awesome. But at the end of the day, the thing that keeps me going on those hard days is getting an email from someone being like, hey, I saw you in a store and I learned more about your story and I smelled your scent and like, this is what it did for me. So those are the emails that I really look forward to, is those little ways that we're changing somebody's everyday. Going through the motions, disconnected from emotion, indifferent, in flux, sometimes stuck. Slow down, close your eyes, take a whiff. It's time to rewild your spirit.
What does it mean to rewild your spirit, first of all?
So our whole mantra and our reason for being is this idea that we're really busy being busy, and that's okay. And, you know, we don't have to have 10 minutes for meditation every day, but sometimes you can just pause, slow down, spray a perfume, close your eyes, and take yourself somewhere else, even for those 30 seconds. And I think that 30 seconds of pause helps you reset, helps you, rewild your spirit and come back into yourself, because that's what our fragrances are designed to do. It's not to make you be somebody else. It's to make you be that version of yourself that you feel like being that day.
I love that. And I love how each of the fragrances, well, not only do they tell a story, but this is like a born and bred New York fragrance brand.
So I'm not originally from New York. I cannot claim it, even though I would love to. But we did conceive the brand in New York, and we formulate and manufacture everything in the Bronx. It was really important for me to do things locally. Part of Ourside mission is sparking these moments of connection through scent, but I really wanted to be intentional about like what that meant and what community means to us. And I thought that starts from doing things locally, finding local partners that we really want to work with, giving jobs back to the local community through whatever we're able to do. And so our packaging, we also source that using a company in New Jersey for our secondary packaging that's FSC certified. I wanted to prove that not only can it, be good, it can be great, and it can smell fantastic.
I love how you're using different personal experiences to go into each scent, but you're also uplifting the community around you and getting them excited and getting them part of the Ourside story.
Exactly. I think for me, scent is this funny thing where we experience it individually and in community at the same time, right? Like if you're walking down the street and you're wearing a perfume, it's for you, but I also might smell a whiff of that. And so it's this weird tension between the individual and the community. And I just felt like, especially if I'm developing a brand and putting something new into the world, I wanted to do it in a way that felt true to my values and what I would have hoped to see, as a brand that existed when I was growing up and felt like maybe there, wasn't a place for me in this world.
For sure. And I totally feel that. I feel like growing up too, my mom came from the Philippines, and as a parent, like a child of immigrants, you kind of always are searching for a place of belonging and a place where you feel like, okay, you can sit with us.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And I think, it's funny because when we were in the early days of working through the brand, someone was like, it sounds like you're creating a haven for outsiders. It's not about that. It's for whatever reason, if you felt like you couldn't be your whole self, like you couldn't be your true self. And I think growing up, to your point, my mom is a Jamaican immigrant, so grew up in a small town in Ohio and was one of 2 Black girls in my elementary school and, had to pack a lunch, wasn't allowed to buy one, wasn't allowed to wear name brand, all the things that just, you're like, I'm already standing out enough. Why do I have to stand out even more? And so I think I was always searching for that belonging, but a belonging where I didn't have to feel like I was hiding these layers of myself. And so that's what I'm really proud of what we've done through Ourside is our community is full of lots of different people from many walks of life, but they're connected through this idea of scent.
And there's something that you said that I really love. You said, traditional fragrances are made by old world master perfumers, and they kind of use ingredients inspired by their own experiences and memories.
The way I see it is like, it's great that exists. It's necessary. It's part of the fragrance world. And there are many incredible fragrances that have come out of that. But I think when you look back to the history of fragrance and, this idea of scent and spices and all of these things, it goes way further back, and many other cultures were doing that. And so I think, it comes to fine fragrance where we see that where is that diversity culturally and in terms of experiences and lived experiences. And so that's something that I really wanted to address, with Ourside is we just want a seat at the table, and hopefully we're proving that more people who maybe look different from the traditional person that comes from the industry could have a seat at the table. And by the way, they're helping to push the category forward. We're experimenting, we're doing interesting things, and we just want to be part of that conversation, to your point. We just want to be at the table with everybody else.
So I would love to walk through each of the fragrances. You have 3 out right now. You have Moon Dust, Dusk, and Nostalgia. I'd love to kick things off with Moon Dust.
Moon Dust is actually the first fragrance that we formulated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, out of the 3.
Oh my gosh.
So each of our scents is inspired by Daydreams, and I wanted them to be inspired by Daydreams because I felt like it gave us this room to play where we're not creating something that's photorealistic, right? Even if it's inspired by a certain setting, it doesn't have to exist the exact way that it did. But I feel like for me, Daydreams allow me to dream bigger. It's something I can remember that I almost devise, right? Rather than just like a dream when you're asleep. And so that's why I wanted each of our scents to be inspired by a daydream, because it allows you that freedom to kind of play and experience and rewild your spirit. I looked across at you and then parked the van, hopping down to the rocks below. Only hours ago, the desert had scorched our bare feet. As you stood beside me, we joined hands and breathed deep, closing our eyes, succumbing to the abyss. A hum vibrated in our toes, pulsing through our veins until our minds began to dance, dizzying and grounding all at once, as if the earth was whispering, "I've been waiting for you." So Moon Dust is, I would say, the witchiest of our 3 fragrances.
I love it.
It's very fresh and earthy. It starts with some cedarwood and some jasmine and some grapefruit. And then it goes into these cooling spices of star anise and mint before drying down into some Palo Santo, some vetiver, and juniper berries. So growing up, I grew up in Ohio, and sometimes in the summer, you're on the highway, there are these fields of sunflowers around. And you just like stop your car and you get out on the side and maybe you're barefoot and you feel how the earth is all warm and you see these sunflowers and you look up and the sky is all bright. And it's this feeling of like, at the same time, you're grounded by having your bare feet on the earth, but looking up and seeing these birds in the sky, you're almost feeling like you're being lifted to the heavens. And so it's like that contradiction of being grounded and like being like elevated all at once.
I really love it. And I definitely smell the Palo Santo and then the mint kind of playing off of each other. The mint is kind of cooling in a way, like you said.
It's great for every day. And a lot of people who wear Moon Dust, in terms of like our customers, are people who they either wear it for an everyday scent, or there's some people who are like, I'm not actually that much of a perfume person, but I want to smell good. And they're a little like earthy, crunchy vibe. Like that's the vibe of a lot of our customers who wear Moon Dust. And I love it. It's great for layering as well.
Yeah. And it shows you that those daydreams are quite powerful. Like you brought this to life. It's in the world now, and I can always clock it when somebody walks by me wearing moon dust.
Exactly. I think the whole idea of like daydreams and just dreaming, I'm, from an immigrant household. And so I think a lot of times we're told to do certain jobs or there's certain expectations set on us, which, is totally fine. And our parents super care and they sacrificed a lot for us. But I think something that creating Ourside has allowed me to do. And so that's why I love this idea of daydreams, of just daring to think and dream and like think, what could happen,
I would love to move on to Dusk. This is another one. I love this one for layering, and we're going to smell it together.
Okay.
I should also call out, I have the Discovery Kit here, and this is a way for our friends at home to experience all 3 scents from Ourside. And I love that once you buy this Discovery set, the proceeds from the Discovery set will go towards whatever you buy in a full size.
Exactly. And I think that's a way to say, hey, it's good to try fragrances out, see what you really like, try it on your skin, wear it around for a few days. And then when you're ready to commit, we're here for you.
Exactly. And you see how it develops. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
I love this one so much, Keta.
It is sultry. It's really like them. So this is Dusk's Daydream. I ventured beyond the bonfire, my steps slowing as I took in everything around me. Hello, I called out. Hello, I said again, louder this time. I paused, kicked off my shoes, and approached the water. Allowing myself to drift back, I closed my eyes and tilted my face to the sun to soak in the last of its rays. As I floated, light danced across my eyelids, and I was transported somewhere between a memory and a dream. Greeted by the distant echoing hellos, I let the scent of the cedar trees mingle with the bourbon that still tingled on my lips. I smiled, allowing myself to sink deeper into the bliss.
I love it.
Dusk is a very kind of figgy, boozy, and woody scent, I would say. I wear it when it's like the rare occasions when I go out anymore. But I feel like I wear it out to like a bar. It's just like that attention kind of grabbing scent without. It's that person that they walk through the room and they're not even trying to grab attention, but there's just something interesting about them. Like that is what I associate with Dusk. So Dusk starts with like fig and berries, a little bit of grapefruit as well. It meanders into a more soft heart with a little bit of lily and musk. And then in the dry down, you're getting a little bit of patchouli, you're getting frankincense and amber for that smokiness. And I think Dusk is so fun because it's not super sweet, even though it's a little bit boozy. There's like almost like a whiskey accord in there. But the idea behind Dusk is this feeling of, if you were in a bourbon bar and someone around you was like smoking, so it's like a little bit in your jacket, and you step outside and you walk outside and you take a little walk and you're in this green clearing, and it's kind of like that feeling of the combination of like this smokiness and this a little bit of like a hint of booze, but with the greenness from that lily and musk that makes it a little bit brighter and not just super heavy.
And like I was saying, I love layering this one because I love it on its own. And when I've worn it on its own, people are like, wow, you smell intoxicating.
And that's what I like about our fragrances too, is although they have, good longevity and everything, they are formulated without some typical fillers like phthalates that do traditionally help fragrances to last. But we chose to formulate with really high quality fragrance oils so that although it's more of an intimate wear, it's still long lasting to where you're probably not going to have a fragrance cloud wearing any Ourside fragrances down the block. But if somebody comes up pretty close to you, they're going to get a whiff of that. And like that for me is like the ideal, where you're not telling everyone your secret, but like when they come close enough, they're like, let me come closer.
It's like, okay, girl, I have some gossip for you.
Exactly.
And I love how you can kind of tell different stories when you're wearing these scents. Do you feel like different notes kind of evoke similar imagery with some of the consumers that you've worked with, or the Ourside community rather?
I think one thing I've learned is that certain notes like a fig or something like that, they're very versatile. And so while in some cases a fig can be super sultry, if you're getting that more jammy fig like we are, in some cases it could be a very green fig and it changes the fragrance completely. So while I think a lot of people, me included when I started on this journey, associate certain notes or chords with certain emotions or certain types of scents, what I found is that when you're creative with how you put these things together and the concentrations of which you put them, you can get really unexpected scents. Like patchouli, a lot of people think they hate patchouli, and I'm a big fan of patchouli in the right dose. And I think it's that thing that has a little bit of stank to it that makes you say, I want to smell this again to figure out what's in there. But patchouli growing up, I was like, oh, that's only in the store where they sell incense.
Exactly.
So I think I think I've learned that although there are certain connotations to certain notes and accords, I love playing with them in unexpected ways.
I love that. About how many iterations did you go through to come to the final versions that we see today?
So Moondust was the second iteration.
Okay.
Dusk was the third. But that is something that, I feel very fortunate that I get along well with our perfumer, Darryl. And by Darryl, I mean Darryl Do. He is an American perfumer living in New York. And he has been the perfumer behind probably some fragrances you experienced, but as a ghost perfumer. We did so much work up front of like figuring out how to communicate with one another, because I had this big gap of like, I have all these ideas. I love smells ever since I was young. Sometimes I would dream and it would have like a smell associated with it.
Yes.
So, but I don't have that, fragrance terminology. So when I say sweet, Darryl would be like, what do you mean? Sugar doesn't have a smell. Like, what do you mean by that? And so we spent a lot of time up front, like figuring out what we actually meant versus what we were saying. I think that was what was so unexpected for me, is like finding a perfumer that really saw my vision. And instead of telling me how the world should be, was like, that's interesting that you think that way. Like, why do you think that way? And okay, like, let's try it out and see what happens. And so that's been like the coolest part of the formulation experience so far.
Oh, I love that. And it's so important to have a partner in fragrance that kind of can take this vision in your head and bottle it. And moving on to Nostalgia, she's my favorite.
Okay.
I brought the full size because I love all of them equally, but I feel like I wear Nostalgia the most, and I get a lot of compliments on it whenever I do wear it.
It's funny because you're an LA person, and Nostalgia does the best in LA, in California. So I don't know if there's something about like
maybe,
California, but that's where she does the best. I just love Nostalgia too. Of course, I'm saying that about like all of our all of our fragrances. It's like, I love my kid; they're so smart. Nostalgia. An invisible force willed me awake. My eyes fluttered open, and I rose to greet the night. I crept outside and pushed open the gate. White jasmine petals that danced on vines cocooned me as they weaved around the arc above and the fences all around. Feet ahead, waves crashed as they met the shore, playing a rhythm my feet dared to follow. The warm, salty breeze wrapped me in a gentle embrace, swaying me side to side. The moon illuminated my path against the inky sky. It beckoned to me to continue and conduct the symphony for one. I was alone, but I was not lonely. That night, I belonged to the world, and the world belonged to me. Okay, so Nostalgia is the third fragrance we formulated, and it is very unique. I would say it's a love it or hate it fragrance, and that's partly because of the ylang-ylang that's in there. I feel like it's almost for some people like a cilantro, where you can't get enough of it or you can't stand it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But what I love about Nostalgia is it changes so much as you wear it on the skin. It starts off with this very strong, heady floral, and it kind of meanders into this almost sticky, sensual, like woody dry down. That's perfect for like a sticky summer evening. Nostalgia is very personal as well, just because it's inspired by, has a daydream that's associated with it, but that daydream is sort of inspired by a story my mom would tell me and my sister growing up. She visited Tunisia. She was a backup dancer. She has this awesome life before she had us.
Oh my gosh.
But it was her first time smelling night blooming jasmine, or that she can remember. And so it was like this show that she was at. They got done with the show. She went back to the hotel and it was the evening and she decided to go on a walk. And so she left the hotel. There was this like white gate, which she opened, and then it had all of those, like how jasmine kind of like grows down on trellises. It had all of this jasmine and it was close to the water, and she like closed her eyes and she could hear the waves and, the fresh earth. And although that happened in, I think 1985. Sorry, I'm aging her too much. 1985. And some of the details are always fuzzy around like how many people were at the show or like what exactly she was doing as a backup dancer. But whenever she would get to that part of like opening that gate and smelling that night blooming jasmine and how it made her feel, like that part was always the same. And so it showed me at a very young age how scent can really transport us and it can be part of our memories and emotions.
I mean, I wasn't even there, but I feel like I can visualize it just based off of your description.
Right. And I love how it feels like it has a little patchouli in it for almost that dirtiness of when you smell jasmine in real life, like you're smelling other smells around it, right? Like you're smelling the earth, you're smelling the air.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to create it where it's like, it has a little bit of freshness because it has a little hint of mint and it has a little bit of citrus. And then it does get sweet with that vanilla and ylang, almost how sometimes flowers feel like they're almost like sticky sweet on a hot day.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to dry down into that like very earthy, very like real, almost, I don't know, feel where you're like, this is a moist summer evening, but somehow it's like enjoyable. And yeah, so I'm glad that that comes across because that was really what I wanted to create. I wanted to reimagine jasmine in a different way. That's the beauty of fragrance where like I would not consider myself a creative person normally, but when it comes to scent, like all of a sudden all bets are off and you can dare to dream, which sounds so cheesy, but it's so true.
I mean, I feel like you're the most creative though, because you're saying that you're not, but scent is it's like a silent but impactful art form, and the way you're able to evoke these emotions in people. And I'm sure everybody has kind of different things that they tie their nostalgia moment to, you know? Are there any other nostalgic scents from when you were growing up or when you were developing this line or even when you were just coming up in the world that that stick out in your mind?
Yeah, I think a lot of things have smell associated with it in my mind. I'm that person that walks down the block and my husband is like, can you just like turn off your nose for a minute? I used to figure skate growing up, fun fact, and the rink had a very peculiar smell. The Zamboni, that thing that cleans the ice, had gasoline that would come out of it, I guess, but it also almost had this like coolant smell. And I would always chew gum during the breaks between practices, which was like a Trident tropical gums. And when you would walk before you step on the ice, there's this like rubber stuff you walk on. And so like, if I smell any one of those things, I'm immediately taken back to like being on the ice rink, spending so many hours there. I think the smell of honeysuckle is big since that, grew rampantly in Ohio. Rhubarb also. Apples, just because we ate a lot of apples, which is so silly, but like there's nothing like the smell of like a crisp apple, which brings me back to like the fall and getting to go apple picking and all of that stuff and childhood. So there are so many nostalgic, scents for me, and I'm excited to see how we can incorporate some of those and some that come from more of my Jamaican heritage and culture in kind of our next iteration of what's to come.
Oh my gosh. Next iteration. Can you give us an idea of what to expect? I know we're not allowed spoilers, but
Not allowed spoilers, but we're working on some new stuff. And this time it's heavily inspired by my Jamaican heritage and kind of daydreams around that, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff that happens on a very small island. And Jamaica has all this different flora and fauna. And my great grandpa was very instrumental in like cataloging a lot of it for Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
And so I just wanted to think back to a way where it's like telling, going back to my roots and telling part of our story in a different way.
Oh, that's so exciting. Do you feel like that experience kind of helped you get closer to, I guess, your roots? Or your great-grandfather, you said, was instrumental in documenting the flora and fauna there?
Yeah, I think for sure. Like, there was so much research that I did to understand what actually grows in which part of the islands and what citruses really exist. And I loved it because in addition to doing the research, I also asked my mom and family members. And so for me, to your point, it's like this reconnecting with a part of me that I didn't experience a ton. And so I love it. And I'm really excited for what we're going to create.
We really are our ancestors' wildest dreams, you know?
We are. We are.
But you said your husband tells you to stop smelling things, close your nose for a minute. I would like to make a case for opening your nose and paying attention to all of these scents that you might not even notice as you're passing through life.
That's true. Growing up, my mom would, if we were on a walk, like never stop me from smelling a rose bush or, sniffing something in the grass, like whatever that was. I think it's this idea of being curious that I try to bring into Ourside. And I'm kind of a type A person where, I like to do things the right way. And sometimes if you don't go to the gym, you feel bad about it. And if you don't do your skincare routine right, you feel bad about it. But what I love about scent is like, there is no right and wrong. You can spray it however you like, however you want, wherever you want, whenever you want.
So going beyond just scent, you've made the search for community a really active element of your personal life, but also for your business, correct?
Yeah, I think definitely for Ourside, if we're built on this idea of community, we started brainstorming like, what does that actually mean beyond just how we produce our products? And so that's why we launched our little initiative, Ourside R&D Insiders. They're a combination of maybe somebody who has literally smelled us in, a store that we're carried in, or because a friend or a sister purchased, they were introduced to us. Or they could be like one of our, like highest paying customers. But it's a combination of people who love our mission, love what we stand for, and saw something more in us than just a product. But they're people who are willing to get on a Zoom call with me, who are complete strangers at the start and who come from so many different cities and walks of life. And what I love is that they all connected to the Ourside mission and our fragrances and wanted to, find community through scent as the medium to create community.
Yeah. What did that feel like when you were kind of able to foster this and get on a Zoom call with your new fragrance besties?
It was crazy because at first I was like, I'm really afraid to do this. Like, who's going to sign up? Who's going to want to do this? And then, it was honestly incredible just to see that people took the time to write an application, that they got on a Zoom call either during their lunch break or at the end of the day, that they want to give feedback, that they want to be involved. And so I think it really made me feel like what we're doing is important and meaningful, and scent is just like our way of connecting with one another. And so I love it. I only hope that it can continue to grow because I think it's it's going to be our power and our strength and our unique kind of special sauce.
That's amazing. And I feel like I really related to your story about feeling like an outsider in your own direct community. Like I grew up half Filipino in Mississippi, not really known for its strides in inclusivity, I guess. So I imagine fostering a community like this can be kind of healing for that girl in Ohio that kind of felt like, I don't know where to sit at lunch. Nobody wants to sit by me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like that could be a way of healing your inner child in a way.
100%, like 1000%. Yes. I think that's what's been so special about Ourside is like realizing how many people, to your point, on the surface, you can't really assume anything about someone. And so how many people felt like they weren't totally themselves or they didn't totally belong, and they found and discovered this thing of fragrance and they have real community because of it.
What would you say to anyone listening who feels like they don't totally fit in? I feel like that's a lot of people, Yeah.
I think that's the interesting thing is I always thought it was like, if you don't fit in, it means that you dress really different than everyone else, or like it's really obvious. But I realize how many of us feel that for whatever reason, we don't really fit in because we can't be whatever version of ourselves we want to be. And I would say like somebody out there is going to see your freak and match it. And, like be willing to try and experiment. And there are people out there. There are people out there waiting for you.
So, Keta, I would love to kick off our Scent Connection portion of the episode. This is our Scent Connection Dreams edition. So, dreams, both conscious or not, can manifest our deepest desires, wishes, hopes for the future, or even our stressors, like, why am I dreaming about my teeth falling out? I'm stressed about something. And I feel like Ourside in particular has taught our Ourside insiders, as well as whoever's listening to this, and me personally, the importance of your dreams. So Next, I will share a selection of dreams with you that were shared by real people on the internet, and I would love for you to talk about the scents or aromas and feelings that you would use to capture each one. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, that sounds fun. I'm up for a challenge.
Okay, amazing. So this is the first dream. I was on a houseboat puttering around in the kitchen and feeling bored when I found a bunch of paper. I'd been practicing origami for a while, so I folded it into a dragon and it ended up looking awesome. All of the folds were simple and elegant, but it looked exactly like a dragon. I was so proud. Then my cousins, aunts, and uncles showed up and were like, "Merry Christmas," but I didn't have a tree, so instead I took out the dragon and we all put ornaments on it and kind of danced around it. It was a very wholesome dream.
I love that. That's such a real dream where you're like, it makes sense in the dream, and you step out and you're like, how am I in a houseboat in the kitchen? Okay, so things that stood out to me from that dream are some sort of not aquatic in the typical fragrance sense of like salty aquatic, but some sort of like probably cool, crisp water feel I would want to try to create. I love this idea of origami. When I think of like paper folding, I almost think of not quite cedar wood, which is a little bit drier, but maybe some sort of kind of almost like paper smell that we're going to recreate because of that creasing and folding and unfolding of that dragon. And then last, I think I would add some sort of maybe nutmeg or some sort of spice that we kind of associate with Christmas time and the holidays. So I think that's how I would try to bottle it and not be directly like trying to make the water smell like water, because what does that smell like?
Yeah.
But trying to create that feeling. But I love that the tactile feeling of the like creating the origami and kind of like how it could smell if you're working with some craft paper. So that's the part where I'm like, that's interesting. I want to dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like craft paper and origami paper in particular, it's such a specific scent. And I understand what you're talking about, but I don't know how to describe it.
Exactly. I'm like, how do you describe it? But if you've been folding it, like your fingers smell like it, right? So there has to be some way to recreate that. So like that is an accord. I would look to like figure out how we can create that with, raw materials that we have available to us, because people can do crazy things.
Yes. So I'd love to read you the second dream. It's a really fun one. I'm in this hotel and David Bowie is showing me around. He's really friendly and I feel completely at ease. We cross the dining room. In it are many small tables with 1 or 2 chairs. At each table is a different incarnation of David Bowie. Aladdin Sane is at one, Ziggy Stardust at another, that clown costume guy in another. The whole room is full of David Bowies. There must have been 15 to 20 of them. All of them look up, see me, and smile at me, welcoming me. It was fantastic.
That's so fun. I feel like so many of my dreams are like nightmares and stress dreams. Like these ones seem so pleasant.
Right?
You're like, hey, it's David Bowie. And all of his iterations are smiling at me. Okay, so for this one, I would think of like trying to recreate some feels of like a little hint of leather, but not like really overpowering leather, because I think leather can get overpowering, but like a little hint of leather. I would play with something a little, I know this sounds mean, but like dingy or musky, not quite mothball-y, but almost, because it's like a dream kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking of like David Bowie in his prime. And then I would also think of some sort of accord where it's almost that smell. It's normally orris root or iris, but like of lipstick from like a lot of products from like the 80s and 90s, just to give it that almost, it's not like a plasticky smell at all, but like kind of interesting and unusual. And I feel like that's how I would imagine like a rock star to like smell in real life. I
love it. I want to smell that so bad. I feel like it would smell like glam rock in all of its iterations.
Yes, exactly, for sure.
Okay, so dream number 3. Holding a cup of coffee in my left hand, I opened the window of my hotel room to witness the most beautiful scene I've ever seen. As I opened the window, a cool, mild breeze, which might have been playing with the tree branches and leaves, came towards me. The field was covered in green by thick trees, with the leaves covered in mist, and a pond at the middle had a steady, still water, as if the water droplets had been at the exactly same place for centuries. I stared at the scene like a blind man watching the world for the very first time, while my hands urged towards my camera. As I was about to take the first photo from the best possible angle, a reddish-orange line of light from the pond struck my eye through the lens. As I moved the camera to see what it was, I saw an orange ball at the pond, the sun. Trust me, the rising sun has never been this beautiful. So the sun was like rising from this pond.
That's insane. I loved how they were like the droplets were there as if they'd been in the same place for like centuries.
Right.
Oh my God, there's so much going on. Because at first I was like, okay, the coffee, like we can do something with that. But I think that was just in the background almost. Like the visual that I got and the feeling I'd want to capture is this juxtaposition of like you're in this room, but you open this window and there's all this nature out there. And I think that's a lot of like what Ourside fragrances have is like, you're not in like full nature, but there's this nature element. So I would try to capture that lusciousness of that green forest. I would want to capture the cool air because I love when there's like a cooling effect to a fragrance. And then I think the thing that would be really challenging and fun to play with is like, what does seeing this sun that's rising, like how does that feel? How does that smell? Is it something that's like warm and happy? Is it something that's powerful? And so like that's where I would want to play around with that piece. But wow, what a dream.
That is such a cool dream.
I love that.
Yeah. I've never had dreams like that. I feel like most of my dreams take place in the same airplane. I don't know, like there's an airplane. I think I'm manifesting flying private one day or something.
I love that.
Weirdly in a water park. It's the same water park. So these are some great dreams.
They are, and they're so specific. And I love that somehow it's also still a dream because on one hand, they were opening the window and had coffee, and then the next second they had a camera ready to capture this. And I feel like that's the beauty of the dream. It doesn't have to technically be able to exist, but like it's, I would want to play on those, like feeling what did seeing that sun like make somebody feel. Like it seems like they were awestruck in their dream by the beauty of it. What does seeing that sun make you feel? Like what does, to your point, is it citrus? Is it something warm and toasty because the sun is all of a sudden on, drying out the dew that was on the grass? Like what is that? So that's what I would want to know.
For sure. I mean, this is the most fun I've ever had talking about other people's dreams.
Yeah, this is super fun.
So I guess just to wrap things up, we've talked today a lot about how powerful dreams can be, whether it's a daydream or an aspiration that you have, or a dream that you have at night that you're trying to make sense of and bottle into a scent. I want to know, what is your dream for the world?
Whew, that's a heavy one. I think, I have big dreams for the world, but I think something that my grandma taught me growing up is like, what's that poem? It's about stopping and smelling the daffodils. But just this idea of like taking a moment. I hope that we can all like find a way to take a moment and pause and reset, because I think that we're a lot more grounded. We're a lot kinder. We feel more like ourselves. And we can see more of the beauty in other people when we do that. So my dream for the world starts small, but I think it could have big repercussions where we all take that moment where no matter what we are doing, we're able to take that 30 seconds for ourselves and pause and hopefully sniff something awesome.
I love that. And I love this dream too. I feel like that's so true about how these things that you start small, but they have a bigger impact than you realize. Just take a moment for yourself, get a glass of water, and smell your wrists.
If I think of the moments where I was really mean or really mad, if I just would have paused 30 seconds, just like pause, smell my wrist, smell something, to your point, take a glass of water, whatever that is, deep breath, a lot of difference can come out of that. So that's the dream.
I love it. Keta, thank you so much for taking the time today and to just tell us all about the Ourside story. And I'm so excited to see what's next for you guys. Maybe I'll apply to be an Ourside insider so I can get the first scoop.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been wonderful speaking with you.